1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic pain. Many are now using CBD for relief.
Activists are hoping pot could be legalized nationwide by the end of 2019.
When you look at premium cannabis, the Illinois House approved legalizing recreational marijuana.
Welcome to The Budding Report, a weekly show centered around all things cannabis. Please join us in welcoming our host, Charles Horton, and his co-host, Melissa Nasits, as they share the latest in cannabis news, conduct interviews with top leaders in the cannabis space, and promote some of the latest in science and innovation. And now to our host, Charles Horton.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Budding Report. It's a cold, rainy day here in Dallas. Melissa, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I got my hot tea, so that's nice, but
Now,
feels like winter.
Melissa was telling me earlier about what she's done already today, and I was thinking of Marines who say they accomplish more than the normal person does by the time the normal person gets up. What all have you done today, Melissa?
Well, I taught a spin class at about 5:15 a.m. I've already
Is that a time?
Yes, believe it or not. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I had my endocrinologist appointment this morning as well as a blood draw. I had a little PR interview about an hour ago, got that out of the way. Got some breakfast done, and I got stew in the crock pot. So I'm not done yet either. I still got a bit to do.
That is amazing. I got up, had a breakfast burrito, and I'm here. I didn't really accomplish much of anything
you're here.
else.
That's what's important.
I feel totally under-accomplished. Chris, what all have you done today in Austin?
Well, I actually got up quite early and started working. It was a rainy morning out, and my little boy is being watched by my parents, so I just used the opportunity to get up early, get some work done. Took a run after the rain, and then made a little egg and bean breakfast, and then watched the inauguration, or we got to at least watch a new president get sworn in. So it's been a very active day for me.
And so we're a week behind in airing our episodes. So today is Inauguration Day, and it's 11:20 here in Dallas. So we've had a new president for 20 minutes.
How'd you know it was 11:20 when you looked at your wrist? You don't have a watch on.
Talk about catching me red-handed. Yeah, I look at the corner of the screen and then look at my
I'm
wrist.
like, I just can't let that go. Unless you have it built in, which, you know.
As a public speaker these days, it's different being up on stage and talking, because sometimes I just pull facts out of my behind, and then I'll watch everybody Googling whatever I say, and then people's hands are raising, and so it makes a completely different experience for me to be talking. I gotta make sure everything's fact checked before that I put it out. And some people in the government could stand to do a little bit of that too.
Not to mention names, so yes.
Well, we have Sumit Mehta today with us from Mazakali. He'll be joining us. You'll get a full introduction of him after the break. And then Renee Serafini is supposed to be joining us, but having some difficulties, so hopefully she'll make it on. But Chris, first of all, the news. What's going on?
Yes, absolutely. And in the spirit of the Inauguration Day, which is the day we're recording, which is a week ago when this is being broadcast, we're going to talk about Joe Biden's cabinet and his selection for the new Democratic National Committee chair. Tom Perez is on the way out, and Jamie Harrison, who famously did a hard-fought campaign for Senate against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, is going to be the new head of the DNC. And then reason that's important for the Budding Report is because Harrison is a noted legalization advocate, not just decriminalization. He has a very progressive model for legalization and a tax system and a regulatory regime for the government. So that's a big change in terms of the cannabis front, with the DNC platform now having somebody firmly up top that isn't afraid to talk about legalization. Tom Perez, the former head, was famously flubbed comments about cannabis, saying one time that Trump smoked too much hemp. Of course, hemp isn't even psychoactive, so it wouldn't do anything to his brain. And second of all, it implied that cannabis somehow makes people stupid. And Perez just wasn't very with it with reform language and the way the country is right now in terms of legalization. The best the DNC got under Perez's regime was to make decriminalization part of the platform, but it was never a big part of the platform. The DNC never really pushed it, even though it's a big way to make money. And now with Jamie Harrison, a huge good fundraiser up there, we expect him to be very much advocating for legalization and fundraising with that as part of his fundraising emails and messages is that the DNC is going to be spearheading legalization. Now, Biden is more of a decriminalization, rescheduling type of person, but I think that he's surrounding himself with people that are really going to convince him that legalization is the way to go, and having a tax and regulatory scheme for the federal government to make some money and be able to fund these stimulus bills that he's going to be putting forth. So he even named his future Commerce Department head, Gina Raimondo from Rhode Island governor, is very pro cannabis legalization, as is his Health and Human Services head, Xavier Becerra, the former Attorney General of California. And even though Merrick Garland, the new Attorney General, is more prosecutorial and hasn't really signaled really his policy goals or wishes with respect to cannabis, the Deputy Attorney General, Vanita Gupta, is very, very much a legalization advocate. So from my look at the cabinet coming up and the DNC, I'm very, very happy with the direction that this administration, the Democratic Party, is headed.
Give me a quick little education. Is the leader of the Democratic National Committee, is that an elected position? Is that an appointed position? Is it confirmed? How does that happen?
Yes, it's not elected by the public. It's elected by Democratic delegates, and then they nominate a head of it. And if it's not contested, that person pretty much gets to be the head by acclamation or affirmation. So that's what it's looking like with Jamie Harrison, because right now there's nobody else that's put their hat in the ring to run against him now that he has President Biden's approval and nod.
So I've been watching all of Biden's first day plans and all. I don't think we've seen a 100-day plan yet, but so far I haven't seen anything about the marijuana bills. Have you seen anything? Do you think it'll be on the 100-day plan, or are we waiting a while?
Right. I don't think it's going to be on the 100-day plan of his. I think he's looking more towards Congress to pass the legislation that's been on the table. And then once that gets passed, I think that he's going to let his cabinet secretaries enact and fulfill the wishes of whatever Congress does. And since we do have a Democratic Congress, I do believe that that's something that could get to be happening in 2021. And you're not going to see any pushback from this administration. Remember, the previous administration, Trump, had said that he would veto any type of marijuana decriminalization because he thought it was some bad drug. And he had attorney generals that were very hardcore in making states very nervous about interfering with their legal marijuana schemes. So regardless, what we're going to see from Biden is I don't think he's going to make it a priority in terms of executive orders. But he is going to follow the wishes of Congress. And he now has a party that's very much behind legalization.
Well, honestly, I think that, having read the 10-day plan out, not of course knowing what the 100-day plan is, but seeing what has already come out, I think that a big push, obviously, COVID-19 is one of these big things. Racial equality is one of the big things. The economy is huge, as well as, environment. But I think by making economy such a big one, I think that even maybe more conservative Democrats that weren't necessarily for the legalization will recognize the economic windfall that is legalization. The fact that taxation on this could help bring us back from this depression that COVID-19 has caused. So I think that we're gonna see a bigger push than maybe we would have if this all hadn't happened. But that's just my 2 cents.
That's a really good point, Melissa. I think that we're more likely to see legalization or decriminalization, one of the criminal justice aspects, to come in a larger bill. Maybe an economic bill would say something like, the states are allowed to use the banking system. I could see that in an economic bill, something that has to do with the spending and recovery of the nation could do that. Maybe a taxing scheme coming out of that. I could see in a larger criminal justice bill, which he has said he's going to do in his 100 days. I could see decriminalization and expunction coming out of that. So we may see this as part of larger bills as opposed to a single bill like the MORE Act or something. We may see this coming in bills that reflect a larger, broader agenda by Biden with the economy and criminal justice reform.
it's going to be an interesting few months up front. So I'm looking forward to a lot of positive changes. But we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
Hello, hello, coming to you from the outdoors where I do my heat training, and I did my repeats on the hills. It's actually pretty empty, but it's kind of close to 90 degrees. So that's when I squeeze in whenever I can, but I'm actually here to share what Simply Start, Simply Satisfy is. So this organic hemp oil, this is the serum Simply Start, and you can take it twice a day or once. I already took both of them in this morning, so now it's lunchtime. Real quick and easy, yummy, delicious, 30 calories. The other one is Simply Satisfy. So it's a spray, and also 3 sprays. You could do it once a day or twice a day. Again, I did it this morning. I'm doing it now at lunch. It helps you take care of your health and wellness. So learn more about them. Remember, 3 simple changes on how you can incorporate into your life. You can learn more at the link below. So stay safe and keep moving, keep training, and take care of your spirit, mind, and body. Coming to you after our hike that we finished. Buster exercises 3 miles. Today is a recovery day because he did 8-mile hike over the weekend, broken up into 2. But what I want to share with you is this company here called Simple Changes. I learned about them and I absolutely love the concept. It's wellness, community, and organization. So as you can see here, I love the wrapping. I love purple, and it comes with 3 products. So I've been trying them out. First, it's the hemp oil spray. Then it's the hemp oil dropper and the hemp oil ball. So I'll be trying all of these out. I've been exploring them, exploring ingredients. I met with the team on Zoom. Really neat product. And I love the fact that they also want to incorporate healthy practices. So they come with a little journal and something about Simple Success Guide. So, simple changes. You're so entertained, huh? Papa. Hey, ready? Papa.
Well, welcome back. We're with Sumit Mehta. He is the CEO of Mezcali. He's a true cannabis strategist and done much time on Wall Street. I believe it's over 20 years of working on Wall Street, but has earned his MBA from Ross School of Business and the University of Michigan, and is an internationally recognized speaker. He's also the author of the Mezcali Green Paper, which has generated over 70,000 subscribers. So I just want to start with this. You've been quoted since 2017, calling for 2021 to be a pivotal year in the cannabis industry. With this Democratic sweep, your forecast looks pretty spot on. So what are you thinking that made to make that call 4 years ago?
Yeah, Melissa, thanks, and thanks for having me on the show. 2017 certainly does seem like a long time ago, certainly is in cannabis years. So if I think back to that time when we started making calls for 21 to be a pivotal year in the industry, I'd start by sharing that we'd been following public opinion polls on legalization. And one thing we noticed in 2017 was a fairly precipitous decline in those that were opposed to legalization in the previous 10 years. So as an example, with numbers, from 2007 through 17, we saw opposition decline from 60 to 40%, and support increase even more from 32 up to nearly 60%. We then looked at other states-led rights issues that eventually became legal at the federal level, and we saw some fairly similar trajectories. The most recent example, and it seems remarkable that it was only in 2015, was the gay rights issue when the landmark Supreme Court ruling was ultimately passed. Now, remember that the first medical market in the United States opened 25 years ago with the passage of Prop 215 in California. And the legalization movement, even on the medical side, really didn't pick up steam until 2014, when we saw a significant uptick in states that were passing legalization or decriminalization laws. And we knew that the majority of Americans would soon have legal access to cannabis, along with the countless stories to tell about its medical impact. And that, frankly, further bolsters public support, especially at a time when media was starting to become less reticent to cover this topic primarily because it was becoming increasingly destigmatized. Lastly, I would share that we knew it was going to be a very tough call to get any meaningful reform under a Republican administration. And we thought that the construct of the Senate and the House might change such that it would be politically unfeasible to support legalization. And all of this combined led to our forecast for 2021 being a fairly pivotal year for the industry.
That's exciting. Now, earlier, I'm going to get to my on-point question here in a minute, but earlier you said you were kind of moving around every 30 days, and you're currently in my hometown of Las Cruces, New Mexico. I'm just curious how you got to Las Cruces.
Yeah, I've got a very simple theory for finding my next home. I'm moving every 30 days. I'm officially a San Francisco COVID nomad. And my very simple desire to go places is to find sun and warmth. And that, frankly, is what led me to Las Cruces.
Okay, interesting. So I've been a cannabis investor now for a couple of years. I looked at doing a 100-acre hemp grow. That's what got me into the industry, or interested in the industry. I decided not to do that, and that turned out to be a very good decision. But I did find some different areas that were very lucrative for investing and had an immediate need. Now that everything is changing, what are your thoughts for new investors getting into the cannabis space? It looks like we had a good pop since the election, but also there's been a lot of I believe it was the weed mutual fund just went out of business. What do you suggest for new investors?
Yeah, that's a great point, great question. I'm glad you're sitting there in Texas, where I went to school and where I went and started my first gig, which was to work as a technology analyst at Merrill Lynch in Austin in the mid-90s. And as a technology analyst, I was looking at the space, and I think back now, 25 years later, tech was an industry. And when you fast forward to today, it's a part of every industry. You can't name one without it. And I view cannabis from quite the same lens and anticipate very healthy growth in the years and decades ahead. Cannabis is currently an industry, and I think that one would be hard-pressed to name an industry that is untouched by this plant in the decades to come. We do expect it to be the best-performing asset class over the next decade, and of course, time will tell whether this forecast that we're making today is prescient in hindsight or not. To answer your question more directly, what are we telling, or what would we tell investors that are coming into the space? We'll start with the size of the market and the growth. The market is incredibly large, and it is growing extremely rapidly. In fact, if we look at industries over the past 50 years that have exhibited levels of growth similar to cannabis, the only industry we found that has exceeded the growth rate we are currently seeing is broadband adoption. We also looked at the home video market and the DVD market, and we simply don't see, including basic cable, the kind of growth rates we're seeing now. It ought to not be a surprise to anyone that the fundamentals of this industry are incredibly powerful. More people are consuming more cannabis for more reasons in more places every single day. And now that we're in our 25th year of legalization in the United States, with the last couple of years in particular proving that legalization and global trade is frankly a question of when, not if. Taking a macro look at the industry, there are 40,000 private companies in the space, many of which are doing fully well, but with valuations at levels that are excessively attractive to investors, given the downturn that you mentioned with your mutual fund example. Cannabis being deemed an essential industry through the COVID lockdown further, in our opinion, reduces the investment risk. And markets are opening up in some new and exciting geographies with extremely large markets, as we saw the 7 ballot initiatives all pass this past November. Political support, we just went through that earlier in the show. That has been made very clear by the folks in the highest offices in the country. And specifically to investors that are new to the space, there's a lot of excitement, and it's great to see. We would suggest having a plan in place for how much money you want to allocate, what sectors you find attractive, what geographic markets you want exposure to. And remember that the industry has matured enough now to warrant and reward planned diversification of exposure and provides ample growth at attractive price points. Ultimately, investing in depressed valuations in an essential recession-resistant asset class that has low correlations to other asset classes and has many sectors growing north of 30% is quite attractive from an investment standpoint. If you're new to the space, we think it's useful to get a professional advisor. Make sure they're licensed to do what they are doing, and remember to have some fun along the way.
Great advice. Chris.
Yes, well, you mentioned the cannabis sector being an essential business or essential service during COVID. Were there any impacts from COVID on the cannabis sector? And if so, can you tell us about them?
Certainly, Chris. I think you mentioned this earlier, that the shutdown had certainly caused a fairly significant increase in people's anxiety, and folks are, frankly, even having trouble sleeping well at night. And when you have these elevated concerns for jobs, for the future, for income, those are real. And we currently live, unfortunately, in an environment where opioid and crisis almost always go hand in hand. And when that is the case with a legal product, and on the other side, you've got a plant that frankly kills fewer people than selfies every year, cannabis comes to the forefront as an excellent way to deal with these stress and sleep issues. Cannabis being deemed essential in most states had a very positive impact and continues to serve as a tailwind for our industry. We are watching at Mazzucchelli for any statistically valid data on health outcomes in states that have legal cannabis markets relative to those who don't. And I believe that's a picture that will be quite telling in the months to come. But some of the stuff that, some of the topics you guys have mentioned on the show already, government tax coffers dwindling, cannabis emerging as a politically popular industry. We can look at states that have legalized to see how much revenue has been generated, how much employment has been created. And of course, we continue to discover the immense health benefits that are so important, especially now when they're so badly needed by so many people. And lastly, and today is a great day to talk about this, the political tide has turned to a party that has expressed specific support for the industry, and that itself, in and of itself, continues to bring new investors to the table. So I would say that in an otherwise challenging overall business environment during COVID, cannabis ended up shining through in a way we simply hadn't seen at any point, at least in the last 7 years that I've been in the industry.
So I have a question, because Charles asked, obviously, as an investor, but having read your bio, you work with a lot of companies that are looking to earn money or to raise money. So what would your advice be to that element of the market, and what are you advising those companies to do?
Yeah, sure, Melissa. For companies, if you are a cannabis business, whether you're touching the plant or an ancillary business, or if you're in real estate or the hemp market, or frankly, if you're working overseas, and we have several clients across different countries around the world that are also legalizing, I would share this. The capital environment has changed. It's changed through COVID. It continues to remain different. The players have changed and the world has changed. So if you're doing what you did a year ago, I wouldn't expect the same results that you might have gotten a year ago. It helps to think about raising capital for your business, or in other words, selling a piece of your business no differently than you might think about selling your house. If you want to sell your house, you've got to get all your paperwork in order. You want to clean up your house and make it look nice. And you want to invite as many people to your open house as possible. And it's no different for a business looking to raise capital in today's market. Taking care of paperwork ensures that investors can do adequate and complete diligence on your business. You're going to want to get professionals involved in its preparation. And by paperwork, I mean all of the documents that allow investors to diligence your business, and of course, the documents that allow investors to sign into buying a piece of your business, or conversely put, investing into your raise. The second step is cleaning up your house and making it look nice. And I mentioned some older practices, and some of these are still rampant today. And I've been an investor for 25 years, and I'm constantly shuffled from an email to a PowerPoint to a data room to a DocuSign. This is an inefficient process for parties on both sides, and it results in a lot of frustration that can be easily avoided through technology. This inefficiency is what drove us to create our online marketplace precisely to make it easier for investors and companies to interact. And then lastly, step 3 is inviting as many people to your house as possible. And I would say the shutdown has really helped here, as going digital has flattened the globe.
Yeah.
Costs the same to meet someone across town as it does to meet someone across the world. And so our advice to companies is to clean up your paperwork and make it institutional quality. Provide potential investors with a seamless experience, and look at your total addressable market as the world, rather than the few legacy investors in cannabis or the investors you might know in your hometown. And if companies can do all of those steps successfully, then you've set yourself up to take advantage of the excitement that exists in the marketplace, and for your company to move on to its next leg of growth.
That sounds like great business advice, regardless of the business. I mean,
Exactly.
I think we could all take something away from that, just as far as convenience. I mean, using what we've learned through all of this and the technology that's available to us. Wasted time is the one thing we can't afford to waste, right?
Exactly. You really piqued my interest with your online marketplace. Can you give us just a little more information on that?
Sure thing. Mazakali is an online marketplace. We are 100% focused on cannabis capital formation. For companies that are looking to raise capital, we are supported by a broker-dealer in San Francisco. I'm a licensed banker and represent companies on capital raises across the cannabis complex. For investors looking to place capital, Mazakali is also a registered investment advisor. And as a licensed investment advisor, frankly, that's the last gig I had on Wall Street, was running a capital advisory practice at JP Morgan. We have brought those institutional practices into the cannabis industry. We design portfolios for folks. We allocate toward sectors within the cannabis industry. We introduce subsector tactical tilts. And we were involved in all steps of the portfolio construction and rebalancing process for investors, as well as the diligence and offering process for issuers. All of this comes together through technology on our platform, and our intention continues to be to make the investment and raising process as seamless as possible by reducing time and increasing efficiency.
For investors to work with your company, do you need to be an accredited investor, or are most of your the companies you're working with registered to take any amount of investment?
Yeah, so that begs a slightly different answer than a direct answer to your question. I'll get to the answer to your question, but just as a background, there are 3 primary channels that companies raise money through. And I just want to mention what they are for the audience's benefit. A private placement in the traditional sense of the term for private equity is done through what is called the Reg D, or private placement channel. Title III of the Jobs Act, passed at the end of 2015, introduced a couple of new regulations from the SEC. The first one being CF, which is crowdfunding, and that allows companies to raise up to $5 million today. The limit as recently as a couple of months ago was 1.07 million. So this channel has become more accommodative from non-accredited investors. And the third channel is Reg A+, which is also a relatively new regulation that allows companies to now raise up to 75 million, up from 50 million just a couple of months ago, in any rolling 12-month period, from a vast group of investors that also don't have to be accredited. So the answer to your question directly is it depends on the channel through which companies are raising capital, whether or not investors need to be accredited to participate in those capital raises.
Well, Sumit, thanks for being on the show with us. For our readers, please check our website out at thebuddingreport.com. You can get contact information for Sumit or any of our guests or any of our hosts on there. And we'd all love to hear from you in this time where we're not getting together in industry meetings and summits. Today is the way you watch shows like this and you contact people, and that's how you meet them. So please check out our website for that. Please join us next week when our guests will include cannabis newsman Cron Burgundy. That sounds exciting.
I know, I'm looking forward to that.
We're gonna have some comedy on our show. That'd be great. And Chef ZD Cannell. Look forward to that as well. And here's another time, Melissa, where we're going to wish that our chef was in person because we don't get to sample anything.
I know. I'm telling you, I've got to do the cocktails here. I'll bring in some cocktails.
Please do.
One of these times. We'll at least have that, right?
And
It'll be
Michael,
CBD based,
get us a local chef, please. Oh, they're coming here? Yes, they're going to be coming here. That's fantastic.
All right,
however,
Chris, you got to come up from Austin then.
I know I may have to drive up.
However, we know that, of course, there'll be no cannabis in that stuff, so maybe we'll get some CBD in the foods.
I'll take it.
But I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for joining our show, and we'll see you back next week.